All right, welcome everybody. Happy Friday, and welcome to another episode of the Commanders Film Room. I'm one of your hosts, George Carmen. I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Mark Bullock, over there. Guys, if you enjoy our content, definitely give us a like and subscribe on YouTube at the Big Doug and Carmi Show. You can follow all of Mark Bullock's written work on his Mark Bullock Film Room Substack, which is excellent work. You can find most of this content over there as well. Mr. Mark, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. How about you?
I'm doing very well. Looking forward to the weekend. It's been a long week. I'm sure all of us kind of feel the same way. What better way to unwind than to watch some film? And I hope this film is good, Mark. We watched the Patriots game the other day. It wasn't the most beautiful preseason or welcome to the season film. But, we were talking off air. You're talking about the rookie class that we were talking about today. And you said, for the most part, the rookies look pretty strong. So I'm looking forward to watching the film today. But before we get there, Mark, the Patriots game was a pretty tough one, pretty eye-opening because it seemed like we kind of went away from the standards and the cleanliness that we had last season. Do you have any concerns about the first preseason game, or do you think it is what it is? It's the first preseason game. I got to get the kinks out.
I'm not overly concerned about it, no. I'm glad that Dan Quinn and his staff have taken it seriously, and they seem to have kind of come into practice this week trying to reinforce that wasn't good enough. And you saw some roster moves made, and a guy like Dominic Hampton, who was a fifth or sixth round pick last year, one of their guys was cut, and he did have a pretty poor game, both on defense and special teams. So they're showing they're willing to be ruthless, and they're not going to accept that standard. But at the same time, like, there was 30 players being rested, and that didn't include the rookie class. So when you consider what their core of their roster is going to be, it's probably going to be the 30 players that were rested, the rookie class, and then another 15 on top of that. So the guys that I think needed to played relatively well. The guys that the kind of depth pieces that were battling for roster spots probably didn't help their chances at all. So I'm not overly concerned. But I think the point of reinforcing the standard this week is a good one from Quinn, and not just. I think as fans, we can kind of just write that off and be like, well, it's just a preseason game, no starters and what have you. For the staff, they have to take that seriously because, some of these guys maybe end up on the practice squad and maybe have to become contributors at some point this season due to injury. So they have to take it seriously, but I'm not overly concerned now.
Good. Well, I agree with you. I do think that it is a preseason game. The competition level was definitely skewed in the Patriots' favor. It was Tom Brady's statue celebration night. So there definitely was some emotions on the Patriots' end, and there wasn't necessarily a lot of the starters on the Commanders' end. But I do like the severity that that Dan Quinn took. I do think it's important to kind of keep this culture high, keep this standard high to make sure that the players are ready to go there. One more quick question before we dive into the film. Another week passes, another week without Terry McLaurin or Noah Brown on the field. We saw Cliff Kingsbury kind of show some first time kind of sharpening his teeth a little bit, like, hey, you know what? I do want to see my wide receivers out there on the field. Speaking of concern, or speaking of offense of production, where do you land on this whole Terry McLaurin issue? Are you concerned? Are you starting to get worried now? And how do you feel about Noah Brown as well, not necessarily being out there, because he's probably pegged as our boundary wide receiver because he was probably going to play a lot of slots. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm still not overly concerned about Terry. I think McLaurin, I'm pretty sure, will be putting the work behind the scenes and probably working with Jaden Daniels after practice privately and away from the field privately. So I'm sure those two will be fine, and I'm pretty sure he won't be missing any games because there's one thing to hold out or hold in during training camp and miss practices. It's another thing completely to miss those big game checks, right? So I don't think he'll do that, especially at his age. Like, it's just going to hurt his earning potential going forward. So I'm not too concerned there, and I can see why kind of the Commanders aren't caving into what McLaurin wants. As much as it'd be nice to not have the drama of it and get the deal done. With Noah Brown, that's obviously a bit more of a concern in terms of he just has this injury history. And And some of it is wildish, freakish injuries. Like last year, he had was it a lacerated kidney or something like that?
Kidney from the internal organ. Yeah.
So that kind of stuff is freakish, but there is just a long-term history of injuries there. So that is a little bit more concerning. But we do also have to remember that at this point last year, the wide receiver room was Terry McLaurin and a bunch of guys that basically nobody in the fan base knew about. And they ended up doing pretty well. And at this point last year, they didn't even have Noah Brown. They managed to pick him up off of waivers, and he became a pretty key contributor pretty quickly. So there's nothing to say that a move like that couldn't happen again this year. And there's nothing to say, I think we're all writing off what Deebo Samuel can bring to this offense.
Yeah.
Like everyone's saying, they should have kept Zacchaeus, and maybe they should have based on the rest of the room. But at the same time, the way they got Zacchaeus involved is going to be the same way they're going to want Deebo Samuel to be involved. And probably the same way they're going to want Jaylen Lane to be involved. So there wasn't really the touches for Zacchaeus. And I would say Deebo should be an upgrade over Zacchaeus. So I think they're still in a fine position. I think they have enough in terms of, they've got Zach Ertz at tight end. If they feel like Ben Sinnott's ready to take a step up, they can go 2 tight end sets. And then you've got Deebo and Terry as the receivers. You can do the 2-back stuff that we saw them do last year with Eckler and Brian Robinson, or maybe even Krosky Merritt or whatever. So there's a lot of different personnel things they can do to work around not having strength and depth at receiver. Obviously, if Terry doesn't play, then that is a different conversation. But I'd be shocked if he misses games.
I agree with that. So without further ado, I think we're speaking of Jaylen Lane, speaking of offensive firepower, speaking of all of that, we're going to jump into the film room today and look at the rookies. And I'm actually very interested in, Mark, I was actually reading some of your Substack articles and your film work here. I know you did some awesome work here. I'm really excited about Josh Conerly, and we're going to start off with him right now. So I'm going to throw the mic over to you.
Yeah, so we'll start with Conerly, obviously first-round pick, starting at right tackle, shifting from right side to left side. And we'll start with some positives. The main upshot of Conerly coming out of the draft was he's this supremely athletic tackle with quick feet. And we saw that pretty quickly. This is one of the kind of first pass protection reps that he had in the game. And you can see the Patriots have a wide 9 alignment here with the defensive end. He's lined up with his hand in the dirt, but outside of the tight end. So it's quite a wide alignment, and that gives him the best kind of angle to turn the corner and bend the edge and get to the quarterback. And that can be quite tough for offensive tackles to get to and cut off. There's quite a lot of ground to make up there, quite a lot of space. But Conerly shows he's perfectly capable of it. So I'll run this on. You can see he gets out real quick, real smooth, and gets his hands on him before the guy even gets his sort of 3rd, 4th step. And that enables it. Now, obviously, this is a quick pass and the ball's getting thrown quickly, but you can see the distance between when Hartman's getting ready to deliver the ball and where Conerly in the defensive end is. He's the furthest guy away from him. So it shows you the quickness, and I'll just run it back real quick. You can just see how smooth he is out of his stance. He gets real quick across, shuffles his across. He keeps his balance. His weight is over. His center of gravity is nicely over his feet rather than lunging out and forward or being too far back. And he's sliding across nicely with kick slips. And then he gets his hands on the guy and he's able to run him past the QB pretty easily. And again, there's 5 yards of distance between them. So it's a bad throw from Hartman, but we'll ignore that one.
The whole game. But on Mark, to that end, you and I broke down, I think, Conerly either shortly before or shortly after we drafted him. I remember walking away from that film study, Mark. I was just so impressed by his speed, his athleticism, and also his technical savvy. He just seemed like he has all of that, and you taught me that. So it seems like it's continuing now.
Yeah, you definitely saw the athleticism. One of the things that I thought was a real positive for him coming out of college was his ability to mix up his sets and how he uses his feet. And this is one example. There is examples later in the game that I think he needs to work on, but we'll get to that. But this is an example of him doing it positively. This is a what we'd call a quick set. It's a play action pass, so they're going to fake a run, and the defensive end is going to be thinking, is it a run? Is it a pass? Do I need to set for the run? Do I need to rush up the field and rush the passer? And Conerly's going to help sell that play action by, instead of, as we just saw him kind of slide out and gain depth and width, he's going to take a step towards the defender, and that's how it would look on a run play. So that helps sell the play action, but it also means he's able to close that gap real quick. And again, he's quite a wide alignment outside the tight end, but he's able to close the gap real quick, get his hands on him, and neutralizes him really quickly. So we'll see that here. He takes that step outside, he closes that gap real quickly. You can see that hesitation at the snap. He's kind of wondering, is this a pass? Or is this a run? He's stepping towards me, but the tight end is also releasing. So is it a run? Is it a pass? Turns out it's a play action pass. Conerly gets his hands on him, and then he kind of just locks him up. He's got his hands on his shoulder pads. Ideally, you'd like his hands inside rather than outside, or at least one inside, but he locks him up pretty comfortably there, and he's getting nowhere. So that's a nice rep. More on the athletic ability. It should really help the screen game, and we know what Cliff Kingsbury does in the screen game, what we saw last year, and we only saw one or two examples of that in this game. But this is one example of how athletic he can be. They're running a little tunnel screen here from an empty set, and you see Conerly at right tackle. He's going to set back one step to make sure these rushers are working upfield and not seeing that this is a screen, and then he takes off, and that gets these guys rushing up the field, and they're able to, in theory, throw behind him, and Conerly's going to climb and get this linebacker. You can see he adjusts to the path of the linebacker. He doesn't just run to a landmark, he adjusts to the path. He gets up into his chest, and then he drives him backwards. And then unfortunately, these guys do manage to circle back well and make a stop here, and that allows the guy Conerly's blocking to peel off a little bit. But Conerly got to this spot, and if the blocks had worked as they intended, then the receiver would be working up to the sideline at this point rather than way in the backfield. But it's still a good play from Conerly in general. Again, you'll see it here, the athleticism, the ability to get out in space and then run down his linebacker, get his hands on him and make that block. And then unfortunately all of this happens elsewhere, but still not bad from Conerly. And then a couple more positives. We look at the run game. Something I thought Conerly might struggle with. He wasn't necessarily the most physical in the run game in college. He was kind of a finesse guy. He was obviously really athletic, and when they ran zone schemes, he could reach guys and cut them off. But you didn't see him do all the gap scheme, like power down block, pulling and kick out kind of stuff that Washington did last year. And so it was something that's quite similar with Brandon Coleman coming out last year. And then we saw him kind of put on some thump and really hit on some guys. And this is a couple of examples of that. So we've got a zone scheme here. I think this was a zone scheme run. He's going to help the guard secure this defensive tackle inside, and then he's going to climb up to the linebacker on the second level. So we'll run this on. He gets a nice strong shove on the defensive tackle, and he's going to make sure he pushes him into the correct gap for the guard to secure that block. And then he's going to peel off. He's going to recognize that this is his linebacker, and he does a real nice job coming back late and making sure he gets his body on that linebacker and gives Bill a chance to get through. So really, really nice job. Again, that's showing off that athletic ability. And this is another example from the second quarter. It's pretty much the exact same idea. He's helping the guard secure the defensive tackle, climbing up to the second level. This one's a little even more convincing. He gets more of a shove on this guy, really forces him inside into the gap that they want him to for the guard to secure that block. And then he's going to go peel up and go get that linebacker. Now, unfortunately, Sam Hartman's not a read option threat in the defensive end. Paid no respect to that, but if he had, then there would have been a nice big lane there for Bill to work behind Conerly. But it's still a nice job from Conerly. So that was some of the positives. I think you see the reasons they drafted him: really athletic, supremely quick feet, able to get out and block in space, and even some improvements in the run game with being a little bit more physical than he was in college, or certainly than I saw him in college. But I thought there were some things for him to improve on as well. I mentioned earlier about how good he is with his feet and his sets. And in college, he mixed in a lot of different sets, and he was really good at that. In this game, I thought he was a little one-dimensional, and part of that is probably like you're not game planning for these kind of games. You're not studying these pass rushers and going, okay, I need to mix in a vertical set compared to a more wider set compared to a quick set and all this stuff. You're kind of just going into it kind of blind.
And Mark, sorry to interrupt you there. Do you think there's any barrier or any slower transition because he's going from left tackle to right tackle? Is there something mental he could potentially be going through?
That's potentially some of it as well. Okay. Yeah, definitely doing things kind of backwards. You're probably just trying to build muscle memory, and so you're focusing on one or two sets that you use. But this was one where I feel like it's kind of a mental mistake and something that is fairly easy correctable in theory. So this is one where, again, it's that wide alignment, and they're in an empty backfield. So they've got, I think this is a receiver in tight here, and he's actually going to chip to help Conerly get into his set. Now, when you have chip help, typically you see the tackle set a little bit more vertically, get himself back, and be ready to take on the block once the chips happened. And because you don't have to worry about getting out to the guy, the chip's there to help with that. So you don't have to worry about gaining a lot of width and depth. You kind of just set yourself back and prepare for that secondary rush. But what Conerly does is he goes for the same kind of quick set that we saw earlier, which doesn't really make sense when you have a chip help. So I don't know if it's a mental mistake. He didn't think he was having chip help, or he was just like, I need to go get out to this guy as quickly as possible. I'm not sure, but you'll see it here. He gets the chip from the receiver, and he comes flying out of this stance. And it's impressive that he's able to cover so much ground so smoothly and so easily, but he doesn't need to at this point. All he's doing is getting himself in a bad spot because he's effectively getting blocked by his own guy here from getting his hands on the defender. And so he's getting himself in a bad spot where there's this huge gap between himself and the right guard. And he's putting himself on this island where he can't get on his hands on the guy because he's got chip help. And what that means is then the guy's able to get upfield off of the chip, and that puts Conerly in this bad position. You can see he's got his back turned to the line of scrimmage, and that's never a position you want to be in as an offensive lineman. Now he gets away with a bit of a hold in the face mask there, I think, but he still manages to kind of just about running beyond the quarterback, and they get a throwaway, which is intercepted. But I think that all comes from a misunderstanding of what either he didn't know he was getting chip help, or he didn't think he was getting chip help, or he got his kind of footwork wrong, and he was like, okay, I'm going to quick set this time, and didn't realize that actually when I'm having chip help, I don't need to quick set. I don't need to get my hands on the guy. That's what the chip is for. I can set back and prepare for the secondary rush.
Exactly right. Yeah.
Another one that I think is fairly easy to explain is the stunt that he gave up some pressure on. And when I went back and thought about it, Conerly's been working with the starting unit and the secondary unit. They've been mixing in a bunch of different guys at right guard. We know Nick Allegretti's been playing right guard with the ones, but this was Julian Good-Jones, I think, at this point. But he was also playing center. This might be Tyree Phillips, but they had been using Julian Good-Jones at right guard and center. We've heard about Chris Paul playing some right guard at times in camp and stuff. So he hasn't really been able to build any sort of rapport with anyone. And that could be a concern in the season as well, because if Sam Cosmi comes back week 1 without having any practice, suddenly you've got a guard and a tackle that have not played together at all. So that could be something to think about. But anyway, what happens here is that you have a stunt. So the defensive tackle is going to rush upfield, and in an ideal world, you have good communication between these two. The tackle sets backwards, and the guard passes him off, and then the guard is able to redirect back inside and pick up the looping defensive end. But that's not what happens. Conerly does the kind of same thing that we've seen before. He kind of gets quite a lot of width, and that was kind of a sort of theme for him in this game. I'd like to see him maybe get a little bit more depth, but we'll get to that. But he gets quite a lot of width, and he goes out towards this guy. But you can see the issue with that is as soon as you're getting so much width, you're opening up this space between yourself and the guard. So when you get a stunt, you have no real way to get back inside to this. So you can see the defensive tackle is trying to go and pick Conerly to allow this guy to loop around inside. And the guard is trying his best to pass this off so that he can peel off. But Conerly's not in a position to either cut off the defensive end or pick up the the defensive tackle. So in the end, he kind of does neither. And the guard does a pretty nice job of being like, okay, I've thrown this outside. This is your responsibility now. I need to get back inside for this looper to stop the immediate threat. Now, I will give Conerly some credit that he doesn't give up on the play, just accepts a sack. He does keep playing, and he goes back and he does just enough to give Hartman a chance to scramble away from it. But that's the kind of mental mistake you see from a rookie, and especially. Sorry. Go ahead.
That was a great catch, Mark. I was very, if you saw that in real time, wouldn't necessarily notice the breakdown in protection there. But there was a misstep by Conerly. I thought the guard did a pretty good job recovering and picking up the spot. I mean, Phillips, I didn't really even know much about him, but he's looking at a good play there. What would you attest to that? Is it a mental error? Do you think that's something that was a one-off mistake, or what do you suspect? Like, what do you put together in regard to that?
Yeah, I think it's mostly mental.
Okay.
Probably, like as I mentioned, like he's not had a lot of reps with the different offensive linemen that have been rotating at right guard, and how he's been rotating with the ones and the twos and stuff. So he's not had a chance to build up that kind of rapport with a single guy.
Mm-hmm.
That probably plays into it quite a bit. And they're still, as you said, talking about switching to the right side, and he's kind of readjusting his body to be doing everything backwards. He's probably still thinking like, do I need, like, with, as I've mentioned about getting so much width at sometimes quick setting guys and that kind of thing, those kind of mental errors. It's just kind of rookie stuff, I guess. And hopefully it will improve. The things that I think we need to see him improve, the mental stuff is something that I think will improve with time. The other stuff that we need to see him improve from this game would be how he leaves his chest exposed a little bit. One of the main knock on him coming out of college was he's this super athletic guy, but he doesn't handle power necessarily great. He kind of lacks a little bit of lower body strength, and he doesn't anchor particularly well against power rushers. And this rep shows an issue why he might struggle against some better power rushers. So again, we've got this kind of wide alignment. The tight end's in, but he's not chipping. He's releasing freely. So this time he's able to gain set however he likes. And we'll roll this on, and you'll see he gets out nicely. He cuts off the speed. He has no issues there. But you can see his hands are quite low and wide. And that kind of leaves his chest exposed as this rusher kind of gives a little stutter and is like, what am I going to do? And you can see as he goes to engage, again, Conerly's hands are low and wide. He's leaving his chest really exposed, and the defender is able to get both hands right into the chest of Conerly and really land a powerful punch on him. And you can see Conerly's get knocked back off balance. Now, credit to Conerly, he does manage to recover and keep himself balanced and drop the anchor here. You can see how he's dropping his anchor. He's bending his knees. He's dropping his hips, sinking his hips down, and he's got his feet wide, so he's able to kind of regain his balance and drop anchor and withstand that bull rush. But this is, I think this was an undrafted free agent like 2 years ago from the Patriots. I don't think it's it's not Myles Garrett over there, right? I would expect a better rusher to be able to take advantage of that exposed chest and really drive him back better than what this guy did here. So credit to Conerly. He showed the technique to be able to recover and drop anchor. And a good part of why he's trying to gain so much width rather than depth is because when he gains width, he gives himself a lot of more space between himself and the quarterback. So if a rusher does try to bull rush him, he gives himself space to give ground and drop anchor like this. And still, you can see there's still quite a lot of distance between himself and the quarterback. So that's a positive. But the leaving the chest exposed is a concern against better rushers. And then the final one was the final bad rep from Conerly. This is where he gets beat inside. And this is where I'll go into a little bit more of that. How he's gaining so much width. It seemed like a theme, and as you mentioned, switching to the right side might be part of it, where he's just trying to build muscle memory of certain sets over and over. Because in college, when he was playing left side, he did a really nice job of mixing up his sets. Sometimes it'd be more vertical, sometimes it'd be getting more width rather than depth, and sometimes it'd be, as we talked about, kind of quick sets and fake vertical sets and then quick sets. So he was really good with it on the left side. But with the kind of theme we've seen the whole time here is that he's focusing so much on getting width, which has its benefits at times, but it can leave him exposed to other things like this inside move here. So we'll run this off the snap in really quick feet. Again, does a really nice job getting outside and cutting off that speed rush. Like, this guy has no chance of getting that edge because Conerly was so quick to gain so much width. But you can see, if you compare where Conerly is to Trent Scott, Scott's taking a much more vertical set. So he's gaining depth. And by gaining depth, he's still cutting off the speed rush, but he's positioning himself to handle this rusher in a much better way. He can set an anchor and readjust to whatever he does. He's given himself more space between him, more time to evaluate things. Whereas Conerly, you can see he's a yard or two further up, and he's gained more width, so he's further away from the quarterback, but it means he's opened up this huge gap between himself and the guard. And so that gives the defensive end a chance to stunt inside, and he does get inside of him. Now, fortunately, they've got a line slide this way, so the right guard's able to come across and help him out. The center's able to come across and pick up the guard's block, and the left guard is able to help the center. So they get it all picked up. You can see Conerly's getting beat inside, and he's so much width that it wasn't necessary at this point. And again, Hartman gets a throwaway, so it's not the end of the world, but that was just that was a theme for me. Was he's focusing so much on getting width. It was like every snap he was either quick setting or really getting width, and it might be that that's something that the coaches are telling him to do, as I talked about, to try to help him with the bull rush, to give him more space between himself and the quarterback to drop an anchor if he does get bull rushed. But I think he can help himself a little bit at times by mixing up those sets and gaining more depth sometimes than width, and not creating so much space for himself. So
Mark, what I'm hearing is, what you like to see from him moving forward is more variance, right? You want to see him do some width steps, some more depth steps, kind of just to vary it, to kind of offer some more variety, I guess, to kind of protect himself and also confuse a defender, is I guess what you're trying to say there. And then in addition to that, I guess let's do this. What would be your grade for him, A, B, C, D, E, for this game, and what would be next steps for him as well?
Yeah, I mean, I've never been a fan of giving out a number or letter grade because I don't know what they're coaching him to do.
That's true.
I would say, like, it was, you saw all the positives that you needed to see from him to be like, okay, this is why they drafted him. Like, the athleticism is there. You saw some improvements, as I talked about, with the ability to drop an anchor. Was something that he didn't necessarily do in college particularly well. So that's a potential step forward. You saw him have a little bit more thump in the run game, which is another thing you didn't see him do often in college. So that's a potential step forward. And the sets were something that he did do really well in college. That was one of the biggest strengths of his in college, I felt. So I think that'll come. I think it's, the mental side of the game should improve with more reps and more rapport with whatever lineman he's playing with, and hopefully they'll be able to kind of get him settled with, if it's going to be Nick Allegretti for the first 2 weeks, then great. If it's going to be Sam Cosmi, then hopefully those guys are working on stuff on the kind of sideline while Cosmi is working his way back, so that they have some sort of rapport. So yeah, that's kind of where I see the performance. I don't think it was a bad performance at all. I think there was just a few things that were worth highlighting.
Clean up a little bit.
Yeah. He can clean those things up.
Sounds good.
So that was Conerly. So we'll move on to Trey Amos, who I think he's basically had praise of just about everyone throughout training camp, all the media, all the fans, all the coaches, everyone.
He's a darling for sure. Everyone's rooting for him. It sounds like kind of the seal of the draft, but maybe our premier draft pick so far this year. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and he wasn't really challenged in this game. The Patriots did not challenge him much. They had a couple reps, and we'll show those. But they didn't try to challenge him at all. They went to the other side of the field or different receivers, or certainly the run game early on was pretty effective for the Patriots too. But there was still a few plays worth highlighting. And the first thing I'll say before we run this one through, this is him in press coverage against Matt Hollins on a fade, and Hollins is a big physical receiver that can go win jump balls. And in college, when Amos was put in these kind of press situations, he was really eager to kind of get his hands on guys quickly, and you'd see him quite often lunge off the snap and try to jam guys at the line of scrimmage, and he did a pretty good job of it. When you're a big long corner like him, you can get into guys' chests pretty quickly, and if you do that, you can basically wipe them out of the play instantly. But there is a risk of kind of lunging at them at the snap. If they anticipate that and they're able to dodge that lunge, then they beat you pretty quickly as well, and you get beaten for a deep shot down the field instantly. So in the NFL, it seems like he's working on being a lot more patient at the line of scrimmage, and this is what you'll see here. This is what stands out here. And what I mean by patient is you'll see this when the ball is snapped, rather than stepping forward towards Hollins and trying to jam him and be really aggressive, he just kind of holds his position. He'll take a slight shuffle backwards, but he just holds his position and he forces the receiver to declare his intention. Now, the receiver either has to kind of try to stutter and then release outside, or whether he tries to take an inside release. Amos doesn't know what he's going to do, but he's going to make that receiver declare his intention. He's not going to show his hand until the receiver shows his hand. And once the receiver declares he's going outside, that's when Amos will get into the action, get his hands on the receiver, stay on top of the route, and try to force him wider towards the sideline. So just watch for that patience here, and it's a real big improvement from him already. So you see the snap of the ball, he takes one step, but he's still staying square. He's still holding his ground. He's not reaching out with his arms to try to get his hands on the receiver. He lets the receiver kind of give his little stutter, and then once the receiver starts to take off down the sideline, he's now declaring, I'm going outside. You see Amos start to open his hip, reach out with that inside hand, get his hands on the receiver, get a nice punch to force him wider, get on top of the route, and now he's running that route for the receiver. He's on top of it. He's in a perfect position to take it away.
Absolutely.
The quarterback still is going, I've got one-on-one, I'm taking a shot to my guy, and if this is Terry McLaurin and Jaden Daniels, you say, yeah, go for it, why not? So I don't blame the quarterback for doing that here, but Amos is in a perfect position, and he runs with him down the sideline. He kind of gently guides him more towards the sideline. He could perhaps be a little bit more aggressive with that to try to close that throwing window, but he's still in a really good position, and the ball is kind of had to be forced out towards the sideline and ends up not being catchable anyway, and Amos was right there the whole way. So really nice rep, and again, really good patience at the line of scrimmage. I'll show the end zone angle, but
yeah,
you don't see much of it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, and to Amos's credit, from the other angle, he was in complete control the entire time, right? There was that patience. He wasn't flustered. He actually ran that route better than the wide receiver. He was completely over it. But like as you mentioned, if they're leaving, obviously Drake May wants to take that shot with the wide receiver, so I can see that. But Amos had it completely covered. And ironically, I don't know if you noticed it, Mark, but I was watching the top play as well. Noah I had the wide receiver completely covered as well. It was a pretty good rep, and it's a good job on both ends.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. And this is another one a little later. I think it was either later on that drive or the next drive. Patriots get down to the red zone, and this is one of the few other times where they kind of tested Amos, and different receiver this time. I can't remember which one this is, but he instead he's going to release inside and run this kind of outbreaking route, trying to create space outside for himself by releasing inside and then breaking outside. And again, you see the same technique from Amos. So this is a different route. Rather than running a fade, he's releasing inside. But you see the repeat technique from Amos, where he stays patient at the line of scrimmage, waits for the receiver to declare his intentions, then gets his hands on him and stays on top of the route and basically runs it for him. So we'll see that play out here. Again, ball snapped, good patience at the line of scrimmage. The receiver doesn't use a stutter this time, he just goes. So Amos is quick to get inside, gets his hands on him, makes that contact. He's again on top of the route, sitting on the inside, on the outside hip of the defender, knows he has the safety help inside. Then that receiver tries to break back outside, but Amos has that outside leverage, so there's no real way for him to do that. You can see the quarterback's looking over this way, and he could be looking at the tight end, but he could also be looking at the receiver. Neither of them are really options, so he ends up scrambling. I think he scores the touchdown running that way this time.
Yeah, I remember that.
From Amos's perspective, he does a really nice job of staying with the receiver, and maybe a little bit handsy at the top of it there. But I think you kind of get away with that when the guy's trying to run into you and cut underneath you. That's kind of incidental contact. There's not much Amos could have done to avoid it. Good rep, good press, and again the patience is the key there. That you see the ability for him to be patient rather than lunging at guys as he did in college. So that was an impressive thing. One more here is in coverage. This time the Patriots put a tight end outside here, and they've got 2 running backs in the backfield, 2 receivers over here. And Amos, being a big physical corner, is able to match up well on a tight end. We already saw him match up on Matt Collins, who's like 6'4", 225 or something like that. I think this is Austin Hooper, who's 6'4", 250. So a much bigger body. And, you know, in the last few years, we've had a guy like Emmanuel Forbes, who is tall but was super skinny and would struggle against these bigger receivers or tight ends boxing them out. And you'd never want an Emmanuel Forbes in this kind of situation against the tight end. But when you got Trey Amos, who's a much bigger body, you're not so concerned about it. And Amos does a nice job just kind of matching the tight end here and taking away that route again. On that corner route is not an option at all. And the quarterback has to throw this to the flat. Unfortunately, Tyler Owens goes and misses the tackle and what have you. But from Amos's perspective, it's just nice to show that he can match up with a tight end if you need him to in that kind of situation. And
one thing, I mean, granted, we've only seen a couple plays so far, and there's still a lot of season ahead of us. What I'm seeing from Amos is I do like the patience that you're showing. He definitely seems like he trusts his athletic ability and doesn't necessarily lunge or overcompensate. And I haven't really seen a lot of handsiness with him. Like we saw that, and like it was funny. I was giving him a compliment on the last play. He was like hands off until that one little stutter in the end zone. But as you mentioned, that is incidental. It's kind of a cluster in the end zone. Things happen. So I think he's off to a pretty clean start so far, looking pretty good.
Yep. And the other big thing I thought was this one run play. Last one we'll look at Amos is this run play where the Patriots did a bunch in this game. They scored 2 touchdowns in this play, and their first big run was on this scheme as well. And it was something that Washington struggled with all of last year. Is these crack toss schemes where the whole idea is you have a receiver or a tight end, or sometimes in this case both, kind of motioning in and cracking down on the edge guys. So this case, it's the tight end's going to motion in and crack down on the defensive end, while the receiver is going to try to crack the linebacker and kind of pin the defense inside. And then you're going to have the tackle pull to the edge and lead the way for the running back on a toss scheme to the edge. Washington could not defend this scheme at all last year. And part of the reason was they really struggled to to deal with these crack blocks. But another part of the reason was their corners didn't do a nice job of doing what's called crack replacing. So when you see the end of the linebacker get pinned inside, the corner needs to come up and replace them on the edge. So there's 3 guys that all do a nice job on this play. Medrano does a nice job, Tyler Owens does a nice job, and Amos particularly does a nice job as well. So you'll see it again, they'll motion these guys in, they'll try to crack down inside, pin the defense inside, and get the tackle pulling to the edge to lead the way. Amos does a nice job coming down, and it starts really with Medrano. He recognizes this. He got beat on this earlier and had a bad rep on it earlier, and we'll maybe get to that, maybe not. But he did a nice job recognizing it this time, and he does a really good job of sprinting out here and just running over this receiver. And that means that then they have Tyler Owens and Trey Amos like working against the tackle when the tackle can only block one of them, right? So that means they've got 2 guys for 1 blocker, and that means they've got someone spare to make the tackle on the running back. So Medrano runs over the receiver. Tyler Owens comes up as the safety, the big physical guy, comes up to take on the tackle, and that means Amos is free to come up and crack replace on the edge, and the running back tries to bounce outside, and Amos, you'd like to see him drive this a little bit more rather than stop his feet and kind of dive at the feet of the guy, but he does just enough to make trip him up, and the rest of the defense is there to support to make sure he doesn't really gain any gain on the play. So good job by, again, Medrano does a really nice job running over this receiver. Tyler Owens does a really good job taking on a big that offensive tackle. I think it was like 6'7", 340 pounds or something like that.
Yeah.
So that's a nice job by Tyler Owens taking that block on, and then that frees up Trey Amos on the edge to go and make the play, and he wasn't afraid to go do it as some other corners might have done. So
absolutely.
So that was Trey Amos. They didn't really test him that much, but the times he was tested, I thought he did a pretty decent job. And by all reports at camps, he's been the kind of star rookie, I guess. He's been the guy that nobody really has any questions over. And when you look at the projected or the unofficial depth charts that they put out, like this time last year, like Jaden Daniels hadn't been named the starter. He was still second behind Mariota on the depth chart, and even though we all knew he was going to start, and like if you look at Josh Connolly at the right tackle position right now, he's kind of listed. They've got Andrew Wiley or Josh Connolly as the kind of starting tackles. They don't want to hand rookies the starting job, but Trey Amos is already a starting quarter on the depth chart. So, that kind of shows you he's just that far ahead.
It's clearly defined that he's standing out right now, and it's really nice. So, like in Washington, we haven't groomed a cornerback one in a very long time, and we'll see if he actually grows up into that aspect. But it seems like he's long, athletic, seems composed, seems like he has the mental to be a cornerback because you have to have that short-term memory that if you got a mistake and you can do it again. We're seeing that with Amos, and I hope it continues.
Yep. So that was Trey Amos. So we will move on to everyone's favorite rookie, Jacoby Croskey-Merritt. I guess we'll call him Bill, as that's what everyone's going by, and that just makes it easier for me rather than saying Krosky Merritt every time. I think people are getting a little bit carried away with him. And
I agree with you, Mark. But go ahead. I agree. I think he's talented, but he's a rookie. You got to develop. But I want to hear what you have to say. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're right. You see the glimpses of why people are hyped about him, and so I understand that. But we have seen a lot of running backs. We see it basically every year. Some running back comes in, has a few explosive plays, and they should be the starting running back. And it was 4 years ago or whatever it was, Brian Robinson was the same guy. It was like, look, he should be RB1, and now everyone wants Robinson gone and Merritt starting. So, like, I think it's a little bit carried away. He had 7 carries for 24 yards, something like that.
He had a catch for like 16 yards that was taken back, but I don't want to go ahead.
He wasn't terrible, and I'm going to show that there was certainly the signs that this is why they drafted him, but it also wasn't like, oh my God, he ran for 100 yards on 10 carries. He needs to be RB1 straight away, right? It was a decent performance. And so we'll start with his big run, the 9-yard run, and we already have seen this from Connolly's perspective, but we'll see it from Bill's perspective. So he's taking his carry inside, and you see these guys kind of all get washed inside, and he wants to bend this run back to the left side of the offensive line, but you see the tight end has the defensive end flash across him, and the tight end is doing his best to kind of keep washing him down the line, but that means he's running into the path that Bill wants to go on. So Bill does a nice job of identifying that as he secures the handoff and just adjusting his path. And he doesn't make some big dramatic cut, but he does just enough to adjust his path, get his feet sorted out quickly to allow the tight end to continue washing that guy out and adjust that block and recover that block. Now you can see the safety's coming up to fill. They've got a linebacker here, so he doesn't really have the ability to run to this space between the tackle and the inserting receiver. But what he does see is you can see that Connolly is peeling back towards getting this linebacker. He knows that that's Connolly's responsibility, so he's going to keep real tight to the back of the tight end to give Connolly every chance to go and make this block. And this is something that you don't see from every running back. They don't always try to stay as tight as possible. They typically see space and want to get into space, but he does a really nice job of staying tight to give Connolly every chance to get back and make this block. So he does that, and then Connolly's able to peel back and go make the block, and you can see the vision and the burst from Krosky Merritt here. He does a real nice job of identifying that, okay, the lane is going to be this side behind Connolly rather than just running up straight into the linebacker trying to run him over. He does a nice job of changing direction, and then you see the burst to run through the hole. You get the linebacker coming off of this block inside, and he's able to kind of basically dodge the tackle, but it's an arm tackle. He's able to run through it, and then he's able to use the momentum of this defender kind of pulling back on his hip to almost stop him and make him avoid the safety coming down. So he's able to stop his momentum because of that defender dragging his hip back. He's able to use that against the next defender to make himself skinny and avoid that block, avoid that tackle as well. And again, the defender tries to grab onto his shirt and pulls his jersey, but he manages to break free of that one before the rest of the defense eventually catches up. But even when they catch up, you've got one guy wrapping up his legs, one guy hitting his shoulder, you've got 2 more guys coming in. He's still able to fall forward and pick that out and turn that into a 9-yard gain. That could have easily been a lot of other running backs would have got tackled for a loss or for a minimal gain.
Good display of power there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you see a lot of good traits from there. You see the contact balance. You see the change of direction. You see the vision, and you see the burst. The ability to make cuts at speed. Those are all real positives there. So there's definitely positives to see with him. This was another run. I think this was only like a 5-ish yard run. This is just an inside zone scheme where you have the tight end sifting back across the line to kick out the defensive end. So he's taking this inside, and you can see that the nose tackle kind of gets some pushback on the center and the right guard combination. You get the left tackle coming up to block the linebacker here, and you got the tight end coming to kick out the defensive end, which should in theory create this lane in between it. So and you got this pushback from the center. So Krosky Merritt's going to take his handoff. Once he secures the handoff, he's going to identify that the lane has actually cut this back behind the tight end and between the tight end and the tackle. So you can see he pushes that right up to the last second, gets real tight to the back of the offensive line, and that's when he makes his cut, giving his tight end the chance to make this block. It's not a great one from Cole Turner, but he does kind of get enough in the way, and that creates the lane for him. Luke McCaffrey tries to block the safety, and he does again just enough for Krosky Merritt to try to make another cut to get outside. And then the corner does a nice job replacing, and the rest of the defense kind of gets across to make the play. But it's still a nice run. Again, you see the vision, the bursts, the not being afraid to run tight to the back of the lineman to give as much space for other blocks to develop as possible. So those are all, again, real positive traits. What did I have next here? Yeah, short yardage runs. So I did kind of trash his stats a little bit earlier, where he had 7 carries for 24 yards. 2 of those were short yardage runs. Both of them he converted. So even though they were only a 1 or a 2 yard run, they were successful runs because they moved the chains. So this is 2nd and 1. This is a duo scheme, so you got double teams where linemen are blocking the defensive tackles and driving them backwards towards the linebackers, and then someone's meant to peel off the linebackers, and Krosky Merritt's just meant to essentially run this right up the A gap and work off of what the linebacker does, how they fit, and make his cut based off how the linebacker fits. But what you'll see is as he gets this handoff, again, Cole Turner kind of struggles here. Bill is trying to kind of slow play it and read what the linebackers are doing and decide whether he's going to try to cut this backwards, try to cut it outside to the right, or try to hit it up right behind these blocks. But this defensive end gets inside of the tight end. And so Bill kind of starts to go, well, I can't bounce this run. I've got nowhere really to go if I try to cut this all the way back. And I need to just get a yard at 2nd and 1. So he takes it right up the middle. And he goes and lowers his shoulder. He feels that defensive end coming, but he's like, well, I just need to go get the yard. I don't need to go turn this into a 40-yard run. I just need to get the yard to convert. Lowers his shoulder, runs through the tackle, and again, falls forward in that traffic and does just enough to get that first down.
He seems to have good short area quickness, right? He's lateral movements, being in a phone booth, he can create some space on his own, which I think that's the appeal to the fan base. I feel like it's been a long time since we had a running back that could create on his own, and Krosky Merritt has the potential to do that. So that's what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, he's got real good short area quickness, and the ability to cut sharply and multiple times. And this play actually shows that as well. This is 3rd and 1. This time they're running a wide zone to the left, and I think this is good. Jones at center kind of doesn't help Tyree Phillips at right guard as well. He should do on this kind of combination block on his own. Normally the center kind of jabs the nose tackle to give the guard a chance to come in and secure this block before then going up to get the linebacker. But he kind of flashes a hand, but then just immediately runs up to the linebacker, and that leaves Phillips in a real tough spot to reach this block. So what we'll see is the nose tackle penetrates really early into the backfield, and then that knocks Bill off his line. So we'll see that here. You can see he doesn't really make any effort to stop that, and the nose tackle gets up the field, and Tyree Phillips does his best to kind of fight and keep on this block, but you can see he gets quite a good bit of penetration into the backfield, and you see Bill is on his 3rd step here, and he's normally on your sort of 2nd or 3rd step as a running back. You're on a wide zone scheme. You're kind of looking to the edge and working back inside a gap each time and trying to figure out where your cut's going to be. At this point, he's feeling this pressure from the backside of the run and feeling like, actually, I have to bounce this outside. But the problem with that, as you can see out here, Trent Scott is losing his block on the edge. So he needs to work outside to avoid the nose tackle. But if he goes too far outside, he's got a defensive end ready to make the tackle. So Bill does a really nice job here. He makes that sharp lateral cut, so he just keeps himself out of range of this nose tackle. You can see he's nearly getting there, but he's just keeping himself out of range. And then this defensive end comes in, and he makes another really sharp cut. He sticks his foot in the ground and gets vertical, and he gets himself between the two defenders that both shouldn't really be in that position, but both are. And he makes a really nice job cutting through between them, breaking through both of their kind of weak arm tackles. And at this point, he's got back to the line of scrimmage. Now, the rest of the defense is kind of flowing in. You get a replace corner, crack replace corner. You get a linebacker, I think it is, running through from the backside. So he doesn't really have anywhere to go from this point, but he makes sure to get himself that first down before he gets tackled. So
I mean, a lot out of nothing there. Honestly, the Patriots won that rep. The defensive line got through the offensive line, and there was a closure, like you were kind of alluding to, and he still got through. I thought it was a great play, and there was a lot. Like, it's unfortunate because that one crash that the defender came through the offensive line. If there was a half a step behind, there was a huge hole in front of him that he could have ran through, but he created something there. Mark, I don't know if you saw the question on the bottom. I don't know if you have the answer immediately with you as well. But one of our viewers said, I have a question for you. Are there any, the Commanders tend to have some under center run formations? We're seeing a lot of shotgun and pistol. Is that something that you noticed on tape? If you know the answer, yes or no, I'm not sure.
In this game, they didn't. In their scheme, in their playbook, yes, they do. But in this game, they used a lot of. They used more pistol than well, they obviously ran a bunch out of the shotgun, but they used a lot of pistol as well. I'm guessing Sam Hartman in college might have been more of a shotgun quarterback and not used to being under center, and so they mixed the two by going to the pistol for a nice compromise, and that way the running back still is kind of in a normal running back spot, can go either way, and the quarterback still gets the kind of the vision of the field a little bit better than being under center. So that was kind of their solution in this game. But they do definitely have under center runs in their playbook, and we saw them last year have some good fakes out of under center runs where Jaden Daniels rolled out on a bootleg and sometimes kept it on kind of short yardage plays and ran himself or threw for a first down occasionally. So yeah, they definitely have some under center stuff, just not in this game. Right. So last few things on Bill, some pass catching stuff. He hardly got to catch a pass at all in college, and so we didn't really know what he could do in that part of the game. And I thought he showed some real encouragement. He wasn't anything spectacular, but there was a couple of nice plays. And this is the one that was called back for the penalty that you talked about earlier. But the first thing he's doing is he's as the primary running back on these kind of plays, the first thing you have to do is pass protect. So he kind of pauses and scans for any potential blitzers, and then he's releasing out on what's known as a check burst. So he's checking protection and then bursting out across the field on kind of a crossing route. And so you can see there's a little bit of tentativeness. He's not really had to pass protect before. He's kind of slow playing. He's like, is this linebacker blitzing? Is he not? And he kind of pauses for a lot longer than a lot of running backs that do this regularly would. You can kind of tell at this point this linebacker is not blitzing, but Bill kind of just makes sure before he then goes and releases. But he releases out to the flat, and the flat's actually wide open, and Josh Johnson's done a nice job avoiding pressure, and he throws this check down. Now we'll see this from the end zone angle a little bit better, but that's the ability after the catch that we could kind of see from the running back's perspective. But from a receiving perspective, this catch is really quite nice. It's not as easy as it looks, and he made it look really easy. He didn't break stride, but we didn't really get to see him catch any passes, so we didn't know he had this ability. But you can see this throw. He's having to adjust to a throw that's slightly high and slightly behind him. So you can see he's turning while he's running at full speed, he's turning his entire body, upper body, back towards the ball. And he actually makes that catch over his back shoulder. And he doesn't break stride at all. He does a really nice job keeping his speed, keeping his momentum while making that adjustment to make that catch over his back shoulder, secure that pass, and then still run away from the linebacker. So that is quite impressive for a running back that we haven't seen catch a ball, basically. So that shows that there is some potential there at least. And then the stuff after the catch is what you kind of would expect from a running back of his style. He's able to make this sharp jump cut, make a guy miss, and then go pick up 5 more yards before being forced out of bounds. So that was really nice. Unfortunately, wiped out due to, I think it was a tackle or a guard holding.
Hey, Mark, quick question before I start to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Doug and I were having a conversation on our previous podcast. Where does JCM fit in regard to like the style of play and like the replaceability of the running back? So it makes any sense? Like, is he a Brian Robinson match? Is he an Austin Eckler match, or is he kind of a hybrid of the two?
At this point, I would definitely still say he's a Brian Robinson kind of, I guess, replacement or match.
Yeah.
That style of back in the offense.
Okay.
I don't think you trust him in an Austin Eckler situation, and I'll show you why shortly.
I can figure it out.
Yeah,
I think I know where you're going with it. Got you.
Yeah.
Pass blocking. Yeah.
But the potential as a receiver to grow is there. So this is his other catch. This is the official one that he had. Same kind of idea. He's checking protection, and then he's kind of just spotting up over the ball here to be a check down option. Again, he's a little bit slow with his pass protection. Like, these guys are all bailing out real quick. There's no obvious threat, but he still slow plays that release and then waits a while to get out, and then sits down underneath, and you can see all the space that he's got. Again, it's a nice catch, and we'll see it from the end zone angle, but he does a nice job making guys miss and in the open field. So from this end zone angle, again, here, he's a little bit slow getting out. And maybe that's something they're coaching him to do, so that those linebackers drop more and give that space underneath, possibly. But again, this is the thing that is important to take away from this play is you see him go and make an adjustment to a catch. The ball is quite high, slightly outside him. He's meant to, on these little underneath check down things, he's meant to just spot up in one spot and have the ball hit him in the chest. Now Josh Johnson gets a little bit hot with this throw, feeling a little bit of pressure, so it's a little bit high, a little bit wide, and Bill does a nice job adjusting to that, makes a nice hands catch up above his body, away from his body, but the pass does take him towards the nearest defender, and what he does a nice job is he lands, immediately gets his head turned around, identifies that this guy's coming, and he's able to put his foot in the ground and immediately work back inside away from that defender. And so he makes that sharp cut, gets away from that defender. Then he can see the rest of these guys are coming, and he's thinking, actually, I much prefer to get outside with working one-on-one with this guy rather than trying to beat two guys. So he makes another sharp cut and works against this guy's momentum and actually beats him a second time. But unfortunately, this defensive lineman does a really nice job peeling back and going to make the tackle. But still, good potential there. I think there is something to work with him as a receiver. I think if you're going to run two-back stuff, where you have like an Austin Eckler and Ryan Robinson in the backfield at the same time, you could use Krosky Merritt instead of Brian Robinson and have two receiving threats, and then you still have Eckler as a pass protector. But if he's going to be any sort of third down back on his own, he has to be able to pass protect. First and foremost, your primary job as a running back on third downs is to pass protect. And this was the only rep where we actually got to see him try to block someone, and it didn't go great for him. We saw him already be kind of tentative with his pass protection, not sure if a guy was blitzing or not, and kind of slow to release. This time, this linebacker comes immediately, and he does fine kind of identifying it. He's maybe a little slow off the snap, but again, the guy's just taking one step forward. He identifies it. He's happy to step forward and get into a good position, but at this point, he kind of hesitates. And this just comes from a guy that has not done pass protection or any kind of passing play reps at all. He doesn't know, like you'd see an Austin Eckler kind of step forward and really go into the guy and thump him. You'd see some better pass protecting backs kind of eat up that distance and then wait for the guy to come to them and try to get their hands on them and block them like an offensive lineman would. He kind of doesn't like neither here. He kind of holds his position and kind of hesitates. He's like, I don't know where I'm meant to get my hands on him. I don't know what I'm meant to do. So he kind of sinks backwards and gives ground. And he's already quite close to the quarterback because he hasn't stepped up enough to the line of scrimmage. So you can see him start to step backwards and give ground. Now, fortunately, Hartman's getting rid of the throw, but you can still see he's giving ground, and when he goes to make the block, he kind of drops his shoulder. He's not getting his hands on the guy, and he's barely clipping this guy. And that guy was able to get by him very easily. So that is not the kind of pass protection rep you want for Jaden Daniels when it's Micah Parsons blitzing from the second level or what have you. So that's why I don't think he's an Austin Eckler replacement at this point in his career. Now, he's not a guy that's afraid of being physical, and I'm sure in time he's someone that could develop that part of his game. But whether they want to put that burden on him as well, or whether they see him as just, we'll have him be our first down like workhorse back, and we'll have someone else that has more experience as a pass protector and as a pass catcher, or whether they see that pass catching upside, those kind of catches that we saw shows that there's some potential there, and maybe they see that as a route to develop and turn him into a kind of an every down back potentially. But that's only something that they can answer. I don't know. I know we're at an hour. I don't know if you want to do a few plays of Jaylen Lane or not.
Yeah, I think so. Why not? I think I'm interested in people. I'm interested in him because I'm curious about our wide receiver core. I think we do need a spark, and hopefully Jaylen Lane will offer it.
Well, we'll do. What have I got? I'll do three plays of Jaylen Lane. Okay. So we'll try to get through them quickly. So I almost feel like they were kind of hiding him in this preseason game. He only got, I think it was 14 snaps on offense, and it was kind of in the 2-minute drill before the end of the half, and then the first kind of drive at the end, at the start of the second half, and then he didn't get any more. He didn't get a catch. The only time he was targeted, Sam Hartman threw it way over his head, so he had no chance of catching that. But in the few reps that he did have, you did see the potential that he has, and the big thing you saw was the speed. So this is him here in the slot in a stack set, and they're running effectively a corner flat. He's running a deep corner route, and this receiver is working out to the flat, and you just see the speed. He's just going to burst by this slot corner, and he's going to get a step on him really quickly. So I think this was one of his first reps as a receiver. He gets a free release, and you can see he has a step down the field. Now Josh Johnson gets taken pressure and has to roll out to his right. He's never going to throw this ball, but you can still see the speed. And we'll just roll it back real quick, and you can see he does a nice little stutter step at the snap. Little stutter, fake inside, gets the corner to widen a little bit, and then he shows his speed and burst to release inside and just accelerate past. He does a nice job dipping his shoulder underneath the kind of contact from the corner, and at this point he's already even with the guy, and now he's got a step. And if Josh Johnson isn't having to roll out, then the safety better be getting over the top of this, because this is a problem for this corner. And you can see, again, he's got to step the whole way down the field. There's a lot of grass over here. If the quarterback had a clean pocket, that would have been a threat. But it just shows the speed that he had off the snap, and the burst that he had to accelerate. So that was one example of that. A few plays later, this is him in the slot again, and this is where that speed can be really helpful. Now, this slot corner was just up and pressed on him and just got burst by and was like, oh, okay, I need to be concerned with that speed. And you'll see immediately what that does to this slot corner. You can see already he's no longer pressing. He's well off the line of scrimmage. And you can see the speed. Again, we'll pause it at this point. Normally, when you run these kind of dagger concepts, the whole idea is this slot receiver is running vertical to grab the attention of any kind of deep safety in this slot corner and pull them out deep down the field and vacate this space in the middle of the field for the receiver to break into. But normally these two receivers are fairly evenly quick, and you can see Jaylen Lane at this point has already got a yard and a half on top further down the field than I think this is Tay Martin on the outside. And you can see he's eating up that gap to the slot corner, and he's got this slot corner already opening his hips and turning to run, worried about that speed that he just got beat a minute ago on. And you can see that he gets a second gear here where he just accelerates and takes this corner on. He gets even with him again, and you can see he's running by that corner, and this corner is panicking at this point. The safety is also panicking at this point because he's like, oh, I need to stay on top of the deepest route. And the impact of that is, you can see the safety is miles away from Tay Martin breaking over the middle of the field. This corner, outside corner that's meant to be covering Martin, because Jaylen Lane has done such a good job of getting further ahead, creates traffic for the corner, so the corner is nowhere near Tay Martin, and there is just this wide open space in the middle of the field. Now, if this is Terry McLaurin and this throw is Jaden Daniels and this hits him in stride, this is potentially a touchdown.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, the throw is just a little bit behind. You can see Tay Martin has to kind of stop and wait for that ball to get to him, and that allows the cornerback to recover, but you can see the position of the safety. He's still worried about getting on top of Jaylen Lane, who still has a step on the corner, the slot corner, and in fact is level with the safety already. But you can see again all this space that is created by Jaylen Lane's speed, and Tay Martin still does a nice job making the catch, but
it shows some gravity. Like, I don't know if you ever heard that term before, but there people are pulling towards him because of that speed. It was great. I mean, that was a good play design.
And then we'll do one more just to show how one of the things in college that we didn't really see from Lane was route running technique. Like he did a lot of the gadget stuff that we see Debo do, the kind of jet sweeps, the swing screens, the tunnel screens, shallow crosses, things to get the ball in his hands quickly and let him work after the catch. But when he ran down the field, it was just vertical routes, post routes, go routes kind of thing. Here we see him run a curl route. This is 3rd and 10. But the way he runs it, we've just seen him terrorize this slot corner with his speed. And he does a nice job of playing off of that threat of speed and that vertical ability to create so much separation at the top of his route. So what we'll see here is he lines up inside the numbers, and at the snap, he angles his route towards the middle of the numbers. And it's just enough to get this corner to kind of start widening and worried about that ability for him to take off on kind of a slot fade. And once that corner starts to shift his hips and work to the sideline, Lane then angles his route back inside, and it makes it look like a post route. So we'll start there, and we'll see he just angles that route inside. He gets this corner to widen. He just jabs inside to the top of those numbers. So it's subtle, but it's just enough. And you can see at this point he's jabbed hard outside, and that corner has started to open his hips and is worried about that threat of him going vertical because he's just been beaten vertically twice by him. So that corner, speed turns out of it. And by what a speed turn is they turn their back. He's already opened his hips to the sideline. So rather than trying to flip his hips and get back inside, he just turns his back to the receiver, turns his back to the quarterback, and just uses the momentum he's already got to turn himself back inside. But the issue with that is obviously he doesn't have any idea. Once he turns his head and his back turns his back towards the receiver, he has no idea where Jaylen Lane is, right? So at this point, he's thinking, well, Lane has just set me up for a post route. He's faked outside. He's bursting inside. So I've just got to turn and run and get on top of this post route down the field. Otherwise, I'm cooked. And so Lane uses that to break off his route real sharp. And you can see there's 5 yards of separation by the time that corner realizes, oh, actually, he's breaking off this route. He's not running deep. Lane has broken off his route real sharply, and there's 5 yards of separation. Now, unfortunately, again, Josh Johnson is working the other side of the field, never sees it, but it just shows that there is some development in his route running. There's some nuance there. Now, there was some bad routes, and we don't have time to go to those, but that one there shows that there is potential, that he is developing his ability to work routes and run more nuanced routes and attack leverage of defenders and use his speed to really threaten guys, to get them into bad positions where he can then break off sharply and create this kind of separation, because that's as much separation as you could possibly ask for from the receiver. So yeah, he might not have had a catch, but I think you did see the potential. You saw the speed, the nuance of the route running improving, where he never really got the chance to show that in college. I think that was positive, even though it was only 14 snaps and we showed just 3 of them there. But yeah, I think there were positives there from Lane as well.
Now, that's definitely something that I was going to add on to as well. I guess the consideration about Jaylen Lane was he has the athletic profile, he has that quickness, he has that speed, but we didn't really know what he could do because the Virginia Tech offense was kind of stymied last year with bad quarterback play and bad play calling. Even though Jaylen Lane did not get targeted this game, they did show some positives. And I think with an intuitive quarterback like Jaden Daniels, you'll see those explosive plays that could potentially hit him pretty big. Like I'm curious to see where Jaylen Lane goes. Hey, what's up, buddy? I'm curious to see where Jaylen Lane goes. I'm not sure if he's going to be a high volume receiver, but I feel like he will offer some big plays that I hope see coming forward. And last thing I'll say is, it's funny. I was talking to Doug earlier, and Doug asked me, do you think they're hiding Jaylen Lane? I'm not exactly sure. Like, you kind of hinted at it as well, so we'll see how that turns out. On that end, I want to thank the 1,025 people that just kind of watched us randomly on a Friday. We're usually a Wednesday show, so thank you for jumping on with us. I definitely appreciate that. Mark, do you have any closing remarks before I wrap it up?
No, I'm good. Sorry about the cat at the end there, but he just wanted to say hello.
He's a big Commanders fan, from what I understand, so it's all good. No worries. But guys, thank you for jumping in with us. Me and Mark love doing this. We're typically going to be on Wednesday. Hopefully, if our schedule aligns next Wednesday, we'll come together again. We'll probably review the Bengals game depending on what things go and what Mark's schedule looks like. We'll see a little bit of starters would be great. And, in the meantime, follow me on Twitter at gcarmy21, George Carmy. Follow Mark Bullock at Mark Bullock NFL on X, but he also has a great Substack. I definitely recommend subscribing, and I subscribe to it as well. That's it. Have a great weekend. Take care, guys. See you later. Peace.